and like a nice cold beverage to get you ready for a good character analysis, am I right? Now, I saw Civil War 2 weeks ago. It was the second time I watched the movie. And after seeing the movie a second time, I loved it even more. But I especially loved the villain. Now, at first you might be thinking, what, the villain? A Civil War villain? Who the fuck is he? Oh, he's some guy who lost his family. Oh, who gives a shit about that, man? Who cares? But before you get to that point, I'd just like to put this scenario into your head. And it's pretty much verbatim to what is in the fucking movie. You see these figures that are larger than life, that are meant to protect you, that say they're there to protect you from destruction and death, right? These gods among men and women. And yet, while trying to save everyone, they contribute to the collateral damage that the villain Ultron causes. You don't care about the bigger issue in here, the nuance of the scenario, okay? All you know is your wife and kid are dead. You're very intelligent. You know how to decode things. You know military code. You know hacking. You have nothing left as far as you're concerned. All you know is that these gods helped contribute to your loved one's death. Now you might say that's very generic. Let's look at other films and how they've dealt with the desperate man or woman, regardless of whether or not they're the hero or the villain. Very recent example, The Revenant, starring Leonardo DiCaprio. In this movie, his son dies right in front of him as he's paralyzed and helpless to stop it, just as Zimo is. Now, like DiCaprio's character in this film, all he cares about, well, at least in Leonardo DiCaprio's character's case, is killing the man that slit his son's throat. He knows what he looks like, and all he cares about is killing the bastard by whatever means necessary. Nothing else matters to him. The only thing he has is his survival wits and the desire for vengeance and to live. He's desperate to survive. That desperation causes him to brutally cut off Tom Hardy's character's fingers. It causes him to kill several people in pure rage, and it causes him to want to kill the guy even if he knows that he's going to die in the process. But why does he not care at that point? Because in his mind, he has nothing left to lose. Another example. Two examples, actually. Anakin Skywalker in Revenge of the Sith, and Luke Skywalker in The Empire Strikes Back. Now, when it comes to Anakin Skywalker's problem, Anakin's greatest fear in this film is losing his wife, Padme, to childbirth. He has already lost his mother. He is desperate to save her by whatever means necessary. And because of his desperation, he explores the taboos of the Force. And he submits to his desires.
He had never seen this man's real face. "I should kill you," he said. "I will kill you." Palpatine gave him that wise, kindly uncle smile Anakin had been seeing since the age of 9. For what? "You're a Sith Lord." "I am," he said simply. "I am also your friend." The blue bar of energy wavered, just a bit. "I am also the man who has always been here for you. I am the man you have never needed to lie to. I am the man who wants nothing from you but that you follow your conscience. If that conscience requires you to commit murder simply over a philosophical difference, I will not resist. His hands opened, still at his sides. Anakin, when I told you that you can have anything you want, did you think I was excluding my life? The floor seemed to soften beneath Anakin's feet, and the room started to swirl darkness and ooze confusion. You won't even fight? Fight you? In the blue glow that cast shadows up from Palpatine's chin, the Chancellor looked astonished that he would suggest such a thing. But what will happen when you kill me? What will happen to the Republic? His tone was gently reasonable. What will happen to Padme? Padme. Her name was a gasp of anguish. When I die, Palpatine said, with the air of a man reminding a child of something he ought to already know, my knowledge dies with me. The sizzling blade trembled. Unless, that is, I have the opportunity to teach it to my apprentice. His vision swam. A whisper of naked pain and despair. I don't know what to do. Palpatine gazed upon him, loving and gentle as he had ever been, though only a whisker shy of a lightsaber's terminal curve. And what if this face was not a mask? What if the true face of the Sith was exactly what he saw before him? A man who had cared for him, had helped him, had been his loyal friend when he'd thought he'd had no other. What then? Anakin, Palpatine said kindly, let's talk.
To save the woman he loves, to save his wife, the possible mother of his children, to essentially save his family from death, out of love and compassion and fear. And that fear makes him desperate. Because of that desperation, Anakin Skywalker commits some of the most horrifying atrocities in the Star Wars universe, not caring that he has committed these horrible atrocities, because in his mind, anything goes to save my wife, even slaughtering children.
Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do?
The desperation in Luke Skywalker's case is very different on the other hand. The desperation in this movie comes from fear of losing his friends in Cloud City. It comes from seeing a vision of Han and Leia and Chewbacca in pain.
Through the Force, things you will see, other places, the future, the past, old friends long gone.
Han? Leia!
Control. You must learn control.
I saw... Will they die?
Difficult to see. Always in motion is the future.
I've got to go to them.
Decide you must. How to serve them best. If you leave now, help them you could, but you would destroy all for which they have fought and suffered.
And because he's desperate to save them, he abandons Yoda's teachings. He accepts that Obi-Wan may not be able to help him.
If you end your training now, if you choose the quick and easy path, as Vader did, you will become an agent of evil.
Patience. And sacrifice Han and Leia.
If you honor what they fight for, yes.
If you choose to face Vader, you will do it alone. I cannot interfere.
I understand.
In his battle against Vader, his desperation ultimately is what leads to his defeat in this movie. Beatrice Kiddo from Kill Bill. Her unborn child is killed. Her fiance is killed. All the people at her wedding are slaughtered. She's a very skilled assassin. All she cares about is killing Bill, the title antagonist, and killing all the people who were in her former assassin gang by whatever means necessary. And in this film, she succeeds at killing all the people that, as far as she knows, killed her unborn child.
언도 하토리 언조 그다나 나타나 死んでいた朝に弔いの雪が降るはぐれ犬の
In this game, it takes an alternate ending of The Empire Strikes Back. This game explores Luke as a very untrained novice, with no Obi-Wan Kenobi, and picking off right where Episode 5 begins. He fights Starkiller to the death, and as hard as he tries to fight Starkiller, Luke inevitably gives in to the dark side of the Force. Starkiller defeats him because he is the more skilled fighter, slicing his hand off similar to how Vader did in this movie, holding the Millennium Falcon hostage and saying to Luke, "If you turn to the dark side, Skywalker, you can save your friends. Give in to it."
Skywalker, but only your hatred will give you the power to save your friends. Turn to the dark side. Very good. My apprentice.
And in this game, he does submit to the dark side. Why? Because he's desperate to save his friends, and as far as Luke is concerned, he has already turned to the dark side. Another example, let's look at the antagonist's point of view. Roy Batty in Blade Runner. Desperate to understand why his creator cannot save his life. Desperate for more life. Desperate for immortality. Desperate for what all humans fear the most. The inevitability of death. The longing to live longer. And Roy Batty, like Anakin Skywalker, commits several horrible atrocities. Why? Because he's desperate to live.
I had in mind something a little more radical. What seems to be the problem?
Death.
Death. Well, I'm afraid that's a little out of my jurisdiction.
I want more life, Father.
But all of this is academic. You were made as well as we could make you, but not to last. The light that burns twice as bright burns half as long, and you have burned so very, very brightly, Roy. Look at you. You're the prodigal son. You're quite a prize. I've done questionable things, also extraordinary things. Revel in your time.
Nothing the god of biomechanics wouldn't let you in heaven.
Casino Royale, once again, the antagonist point of view. Le Chiffre, as all these characters obviously are, is extremely desperate. Because of this desperation, he ties Bond to a chair, tortures him and Vesper because he doesn't want to die at the hands of the people he owes money to. He tortures Bond because he's afraid of death. That fear spawns from him acknowledging that he has no options left but to torture Bond.
I've got a little itch down there. Would you mind?
No! To the right! To the right! To the right! You are a funny man, Mr. Bond. Ah! Yeah! Ah! Ah! Yes! 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 Now the whole world's gonna know that you died scratching my balls. Well, I died. I died? Yes. Because no matter what you do, I'm not going to give you the password, which means your clients are going to hunt you down and cut you into little pieces of meat while you're still breathing. Because if you kill me, there'll be nowhere else to hide. But you are so wrong! Because even after I slaughtered you and your little girlfriend, your people would still welcome me with open arms. Because they need what I know.
And I've given you all these examples of film and a video game. Let's truly analyze Zimo in Civil War. Throughout these films and the game that I selected, we studied desperation. And we studied how that desperation drives a person to do horrific acts in the name of vengeance or fear for survival. In Zimo's case, it causes him to find out where the remaining Hydra agents are, break in to the UN's facility where they're keeping the Winter Soldier. Also, he can destroy the Avengers, not with an army like Loki and Ultron have, but through psychological breaking, through making the gods stoop to his level as far as he's concerned. In the film, he breaks Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. He divides the two key members of the Avengers. When he shows Tony Stark the footage of Bucky killing his father and his mother in cold blood, Tony snaps. Tony doesn't give a... Now that I've given you all these examples of film and a video game, let's truly analyze Zimo in Civil War. Throughout these films and the game that I selected, we studied desperation. And we studied how that desperation drives a person to do horrific acts in the name of vengeance or fear for survival. In Zimo's case, it causes him to find out where the remaining Hydra agents are, break in to the UN's facility where they're keeping the Winter Soldier. Also, he can destroy the Avengers, not with an army, like Loki and Ultron have, but through psychological breaking, through making the gods stoop to his level, as far as he's concerned. In the film, he breaks Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. He divides the two key members of the Avengers. When he shows Tony Stark the footage of Bucky killing his father and his mother in cold blood, Tony snaps. All he cares about, after finding out that Bucky killed his mother and his father, is avenging them. It's no longer about the Sokovia Tribunal. It's about killing the man that destroyed his family. The brilliance of this film is that we see Tony looking at his mother and father, the last time he's going to see them, ever. And he replays a scenario where he says goodbye. And he says that he loves them. We see the guilt that Tony Stark has. Tony Stark is desperate because of this guilt. He's desperate to save more lives. He's desperate to try to save the lives he couldn't save. And when he finds out that the man that his father praised and idolized for his whole life lied to him about who killed his parents, that faith is diminished, that idolization is gone, that respect, that friendship, that trust is destroyed. We see that desperation explode when he goes after the Winter Soldier. And we see how relentless and brutal Tony becomes in this film. Likewise, Steve is doing the same. Steve and Tony both become desperate in a way, from Tony's point of view, to avenge the people he lost, and from Steve's point of view, to protect his best friend. Zimo succeeds in doing what others couldn't do, what Loki's arrogance and what Ultron's arrogance could not lead them to see. The only way to destroy the Avengers is to psychologically break them, is to fuck with their heads to the point where they almost kill each other. And in that fight, it's probably one of the most emotional fights I've ever seen in a film. It's heartbreaking to watch that fight. It really is. I mean, Steve, like after Steve just beats the shit out of Iron Man, and he just starts wailing on him and wailing on him, and Tony does the same. And Steve almost fucking decapitates him. Steve is this close to cutting Tony's head off, but he doesn't. And at the end of the movie, after that fight is done, after Captain America throws his shield, in a way respecting Tony Stark and Howard Stark, at the end of the movie when Zimo's captured, and the head of the agency says, "Look where that got you. Was it all worth it?" Essentially calling him a failure. And Zimo looks at him and says, "Did it?" Zimo didn't fail in this movie. Zimo succeeded in exactly what he wanted. He wanted them to feel revenge. He wanted them to feel that desperation that he felt, that helplessness to save the people closest to you. And honestly, just with that mentality alone, I think he's probably one of the greatest villains in the MCU for that reason. Because the man's relatable. I mean, what would we do if we were in that situation? Let's think about it. what would we do? Would we break? Would we break if we knew that these heroes, these larger-than-life beings that were sent here to save us, didn't save the very people we love? Wouldn't we feel betrayed? Wouldn't we want revenge? Wouldn't we want action and justice for the people we think they killed? Or would we let our rational minds take over? Honestly, desperation is a horrifying thing. Historically speaking, desperation is one of the key reasons as to why fascism succeeded from the 20s to the 40s. And when we really put that in perspective, when we really look deeper into the Civil War main villain, what appears to be such a generic villain turns out to be an extremely relatable, subtly fleshed out antagonist for our heroes. As I said, it's not a god like Loki. It's not an all-powerful android who can control the entire Iron Legion army like Ultron. It's just a guy who lost his family. And that's horrifying. Anyway, that's my defense or my reasoning as to why I love Zimo so much. I hope it was pretty coherent overall. Hope you have a wonderful evening or day whenever you're watching this. And live long and prosper and have a nice day.